Tim Hortons. It's as Canadian as ice hockey, the Maple Leaf, and Canada Geese. Or is it? After the company was bought by U.S. burger chain Wendy's, then became part of Brazilian-backed Restaurant Brands International, did it forfeit its claim to Canadian identity? The topic has been hotly debated online and likely in coffee shops across the nation, especially in the wake of the patriotic fervor whipped up by tariff threats from U.S. President Donald Trump. So, what exactly makes a company Canadian? Tim Hortons was started by Toronto Maple Leafs hockey player Tim Horton in 1964 with one store and eventually expanded across the country. It was sold to Wendy's in 1995, but then those two companies went their separate ways. In 2014, it became part of Restaurant Brands International, which today also includes Burger King, Popeyes, and Firehouse Subs. At that time, a Brazilian investment firm had 47% of the voting power, but over time, that's fallen. The Brazilian company holds just 26% now. Canadian banks and institutions hold about the same, and the remainder is other corporate or individual shareholders. But is ownership even the be-all and end-all of corporate identity?
If I think about the automotive industry, it's a good example. If I tell you Chrysler, Jeep, Fiat, Maserati, and Peugeot, you will probably think about a country for each one of those. But all of these companies are part of a big multinational company, which headquarters is in the Netherlands.
If it's not ownership, is it where the materials come from or where the stores are located? Obviously, Canada doesn't grow coffee beans, but Tim Hortons roasts the majority of its beans at two roasteries, one of which is in Canada. It has distribution centers across the country and an icing and fills factory in Ontario. Of the 6,000 restaurants around the world, 64% are in Canada, and more than 100,000 people work in those Canadian stores. Tanya Doucette is one of 1,500 Tim Hortons franchisees. She says the role Tim Hortons plays in communities is key to its identity.
I think back to the pandemic when guests, when we couldn't be together inside the restaurants, when we couldn't have that community gathering, our guests would bring lawn chairs and they would sit, even though it was winter. You know, we remember the shutdown happened in March, and even though Alberta can remain quite cold until, well into May, our guests were gathering outside. They were keeping the spacing that was required, but they gathered outside because they needed that place to come together, and this is a place of community for them.
So then, is it Canadian? Maybe that's up to Canadians to decide. Frances Willick, CBC News, Halifax.